All right, awesome. Well, good morning, everyone. This is the Using Webex for Online Instruction workshop that we are doing today. I'm Courtney Lay. For those of you who either haven't seen me for the past few days in other workshops, or if you haven't met me, I'm the LMS technologist over at CATS. So a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to show you guys how to add the Webex pilot integration into your pilot page so that you can use the integration for teaching your classes. I'll go through how to set up that integration and what each element does inside of it, how to schedule class meetings and use office hours, and then I'll also switch away from just Pilot and actually share my own screen and show you all the different functions that you have within a WebEx meeting as a host. We'll talk about recordings and where the recordings should be located when you do record your sessions. And then there's also a way in Pilot as well as in WebEx to check attendance reports, and I can show you that as well. All right, can everyone see my Pilot page? Can I get it like a thumbs up reaction? Okay, I see one from Elizabeth. Thank you. All right, so I used this shell. Thanks, Dietrich. They appreciate it. So I used this shell for the Pilot Basics workshop, and I figured I would use it again to kind of show you guys how to put WebEx into Pilot. So once you have gone in and you've added your content modules, usually what I like to do is actually set up a module by using this add module function right here and name it WebEx or class link. That's good to keep up here toward the top by week 1, just so students know exactly where it is. And the way that you add WebEx into your pilot page is through this Add Existing Activities button. So you're going to click on this, go to External Learning Tools, and if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, WebEx is right here. So I'm going to click on that and it immediately populates into our page. Once you're ready to go into WebEx, you just click here. And this will take you, especially if this is the first time you've ever used it, if you have used WebEx in previous courses and you're importing that course over, then a lot of your settings are going to follow. You'll have everything kind of already set up. But there is always a setup tab to go in if you want to make any changes throughout the semester. When you're going through the setup, you're going to start by choosing which features you want. And I'm going to go through all 3 of them today. So I'm going to go ahead and select the classroom collaboration, virtual meetings, and office hours. The most common one is the virtual meetings. That's where you're actually going to schedule your class meetings for the students to get into. The other 2 are awesome tools to use, but definitely not necessary. Once you select each of those, you're just going to hit this blue apply button and you'll see that the tabs went ahead and populated right up here. Time zone, we want this set to the GMT 4 o'clock Eastern. It auto-populates to that, but just make sure that that is what it's set at and hit that blue save. And then you need to authorize with LMS. So this is important. If this is grayed out, that means it's already authorized. If it is not grayed out, then you do need to click and do that. Hit the accept button. And I am authorized. So as simple as that. These last 2 are up to personal preference. So the WebEx meeting attendance grading, this will create a grade item in your book and keep track of attendance throughout the semester. This is really only recommended for online synchronous courses, where you will be having them log into WebEx consistently. It's probably not great for hybrid delivery. It's not really great for asynchronous classes, obviously, because they're not going to be logging into a WebEx. But most people don't use the WebEx attendance grading just because it's had some glitches in the past. I'm going to be honest with you. We've had some problems with it. So I do not suggest turning this on. Once you enable it, it cannot be disabled. And so that's another thing too, that you're just going to have this attendance item in your grade book that you might not end up using. The reminder bot, I see a hand up. John, what's up, John?
Yeah, so what I'm actually looking for is some sort of statistics that let me know when people are not attending my synchronous class. So this sounds like that potentially would be a good tool to use, but you say it's buggy, so I don't want to cause stress with the students. Is there another way that, say, after the lecture, I can get statistics and find the anomalies of people that weren't in the class? So you can come to that when we go to it, but that's the only reason I would want to use that tool.
Absolutely. There is an attendance function in the pilot integration so you can see exactly who attended your class. There's also attendance reports in the Webex portal at write.webex.com. So you don't have to necessarily have the grading on because you will have access to who attended and who didn't. Another reason it can be a little buggy is because if anyone logs on to the Webex meeting from anywhere other than within Pilot, then it will
Like their
not
cell
show them.
phone.
Well, if they go through the cell phone but they log in via the link on Pilot, it'll show that them as being in attendance. But if they had a link in an email, or if they decided to use the app and they had your class setting saved there and they logged in from the app instead of in Pilot, then it'll show them as not being there. So that's why it can get a little finicky. If you want to try it out, you can always try it out and just not use that score just to see kind of how it works. But most of the time, I recommend we don't. I've had faculty in the past try it and they're like, I don't like this. So, but yes, there is an attendance function, and I'll show you that here in a little bit. Reminder bot, this will post a message in the classroom collaboration section, and it'll remind students, it'll remind you of your meetings. I think that Reminder Bot is fine. Like I said, up to personal preference. If your students can't seem to remember when your class is, then it would be good to use. I'm going to go ahead and leave it off for this purpose, but once again, up to your preference. So I'm going to go ahead and go through these different functions in the WebEx integration. Oh, geez.
I'm sorry, one more. You had mentioned
Yeah.
when you go through the configuration that when you turned on the attendance grading, you couldn't turn it off. Once you do it, it's on. Are
Yep.
all of those settings that way? For instance, if you want to try the bot for a while and you don't like it, can you turn it off later?
You can turn it off later. Yep,
Okay,
that's
thank you.
only with the attendance grading. Jeez. So the classroom collaboration is linked to WebEx Teams. And so that's why, oh, welcome Winnie the Pooh. That's my faculty account. So once you have signed in with WebEx Teams, and that's through your Write State email account, you saw the process as I was signing through. It had me sign in, first of all, by putting in my email, and then it gave me that WID and password, like what you use to log into Pilot. And that will create a team based on whatever the title of your course is. It automatically creates a team for you. So one thing that classroom collaboration is pretty useful for, it gives the students a space where they can chat, they can share files. I've got a raised hand from Kuldeep.
Yes, can you show
Yes.
that again, how to set up email in there? I didn't get that.
So you'll see it in the recording now that it's set up because that's coming from the first time from this account. I can't go in and do it again. It's automatic. So I can't go back and redo the sign in, but I will send this out as a recording so you can go back and view that
Thank you.
if this is something you want to use. I will be honest with you, with classroom collaboration, I haven't seen a ton of faculty members utilizing this tool. It's linked with WebEx Teams, and so like I said, it'll make whatever course you're in automatically, that's the name of the team. And then what you can do is go in and make different spaces. And spaces could be based on categories. So I've seen before in a class that I was in where we had a space, it was a grad and undergrad cross-listed class. So we had a space specifically for graduate students and a space for undergraduate students. That way for our projects, we could go in and chat with each other in between classes. And so if I wanted to send a chat, this general one always populates. It's always going to be there. If I wanted to send a chat, I could say, hey, everybody. And that will be there for the class to see. I've got a hand raised from Chris and one from John. Let's start with John, and then Chris, you can pipe in if I'm telling something wrong.
Yeah, real quick, like in your example when you did undergrad and graduate, do you
Yes.
then have the ability when you make these different channels or whatever they're called to say who has access to a particular channel and who doesn't? For instance, you might want to not give one undergraduate or graduates access to something else. Is that so you can actually create space and then you can change that? That's
So I know that when it comes to, like, I put this grad students and then I can add members. Now, what I don't know is whether or not the undergrads would have access to the graduate student space. And that's something that, Chris, I noticed you raised your hand. Maybe you could chime in and give me a little help on that one.
So we've had quite a few students, or I'm sorry, faculty members that have used this. So
Oh,
this is
really?
also a
Nice.
way to have breakout groups outside of the face-to-face class. So um, if you want certain students to work on groups or projects outside of the face-to-face class, you can specifically put students in different groups, and you can have as many groups as you want. So I know organizational leadership has used this a lot. So you can set up, different teams or different groups and have 4 in each group or 5 in each group. As the instructor, you have the ability to put different content in each of these groups or rooms. Only the people that you've assigned to these groups or rooms have access. You have access to all of them. You can also go back in and you can look at each room or group and see what progress they've made on what you've given them. So it's a way to do group work outside of the face-to-face class and to be able to have one single location for them to work on their content. So everything they work on stays in that group, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that helps a lot. Thanks for
Sure.
clarifying there. Um, yeah. So, John, does that answer your question?
yes, thank you very much.
Perfect. All right. And you'll notice too, when I created this space for grad students, you'll see this little icon over here. And so that's kind of how Chris was saying you could utilize this for group work outside of class. They have the ability to do video calls together if they want to do that remotely, which is pretty neat. All right. So do we have any questions so far on adding the integration, the setup, or classroom collaboration? All right, so far so good. So we'll go ahead and go into virtual meetings. This is where you're going to schedule your class meetings for the semester. When you come in here, you'll notice that there are 3 different tabs. We've got upcoming, past meetings, and recordings. So, John, this is kind of what we were talking about with attendance. After you hold a meeting and it's ended, it'll populate in this past meetings tab. And I don't have an example here to show you. I might be able to find one later on in one of my other courses. But you can look at past meetings, and over here in the action, there will be a little icon that looks like a person, and you can click on it and it shows the list of everyone that attended. So that's a good way to go and check and see, okay, who came today, who didn't.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep. So for upcoming, all right, we're gonna hit this new meeting.
Just a minute, I just have a question related to that, it's Karen.
Sure.
So if you have a large class, you're really looking for people, oftentimes that did not attend,
Mm-hmm.
and that's, I don't know, is it alphabetize it, or do you have to do that work on your own to try to compare it to a class list? Or...
If I am remembering correctly, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, we've got a list of the class list, and I think it says whether or not they attended.
Oh, okay, that would be
Is
good.
that
So it'll
right, Chris,
show.
or is it only who attended? Do you remember?
I believe it has the list of all that were given who are in the class.
That's
And
what I
then,
was
like you said,
thinking.
I believe it identifies those that were in the class.
Okay, yeah. So I'm thinking, Karen, that's a good way to not have to cross-reference with your class list when you have those bigger classes. I'm
Uh-huh.
pretty sure. I will
Okay.
also double check on that. I'm going to make a little note
Okay.
just to make sure that I'm not giving you the wrong information.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Also, I noticed there's filters. It's possible you could have different views.
Filters for the different meetings
I noticed as
on the
you're
Google
going through,
Meets.
there were filters on the side, so it's
Mhm.
conceivable you could click on show only those that attend, show only those that don't. I'm just guessing, but there seem to have been other options in here that allow that.
To search that.
Okay.
That's a
I'll check that out
possibility.
too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
All right, so virtual meetings, I click new meeting, and because this is a brand new account, haven't used WebEx before, it's going to prompt me to sign in, like it did with classroom collaboration as well. So I'm going to sign in with WebEx meetings. I'm going to hit accept. And now this is going to populate so that I can go ahead and schedule my meetings. So for the name of the class, there's different ways you can do this. If you want to set up a reoccurring session type, then you could always just call it, um, you know, Pilot Basics class. If you wanted to do it individually one by one and name each of these sessions something different, you can do that too. Typically, what I've seen is that the instructors will just name it based off of what the course is. So it might say, Bio 1050 class, and then it's going to have the date right underneath. When we schedule the meeting date, let's go ahead and do, for reoccurrence over here, weekly. Most classes are weekly. We're going to put the meeting date starting on the 23rd. That's when classes start. Over here is where you put in the time. I will say I have a class at 4:10 p.m., not a.m. That would be unfortunate for the students if it was at 4:10 a.m. And then you can also put the duration. Typically, with the duration, even though you put, thanks, someone's laughing at my jokes. When you put the duration in, it's good to have just for information for the students, how long is the class, but as long as you as the host is in the meeting, even if you go past that hour and a half or past that 2 hours, you're not going to get kicked out of the meeting. So it's just important to know that as long as there is a host in the meeting, that it won't boot you out. All right, session type, we're going to keep it as meeting. When it comes to your class sessions, that's the one that you want to use. Reoccurrence weekly. So I don't know how many of you are teaching more than one day a week. I've got a lot of like Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So let's do a Tuesday, Thursday class every 1 week. There are some instances where you have courses that only meet every other week. So if that were the case, you could say every 2 weeks. For end date, you can put the end of the semester, or you can choose after so many meetings. I like to put the end date for ones that meet twice a week, especially, so you're not saying, okay, how many meetings? There are 15 weeks, there's Thanksgiving in there. So instead, you can just put this as the end date for, what is it, December-ish? December-ish? I don't know when the last day
I think
is.
it's the third or yeah, last Friday. That's end of classes and there's finals week. Or the
Perfect.
fourth if it's Saturday. Yeah.
So we'll say let's not make them come in on finals week. We'll say the third. That'll be good. All right, John, I saw your hand raised. What's your question?
Yeah, so this is great. So I probably would use this, but you'd mentioned that we have some holidays like Thanksgiving. So after you go ahead and use this, can you go and delete like a specific one? Because you don't want to have people say, and I know the students do this all the time, are we going to meet over Thanksgiving? And no matter how many times you tell it in lecture, it shows up in there. So it would be nice after you do this weekly to go to that particular lecture and just delete it. Is that?
Yes, you can do that. When you go to delete sessions or cancel sessions, it gives you a prompt. Do you want to just delete this or do you want to delete the entire series? And so when you schedule these reoccurring, all you have to do to go in and delete that is choose, okay, I just want to delete this one. Beep, beep, beep. Makes it much easier on you, so you don't have to worry about them trying to join during Thanksgiving. So once you have all of your session specifics in, you're going to hit this Create Meeting button. And check that out. You are set for the semester. You've got everything you need in here, and we're going to go down just because we talked about deleting a session. You'll notice that from the faculty point of view, there's a start button, there's an edit button, and there's a delete button. And so if I wanted to go in and say the 25th, we're not going to meet that day, I want to delete it. Oh goodness, is it all the way at the top? Oh. Just kidding. I guess in the pilot integration, it doesn't let you delete just one. Oh, well, that is my bad. There is a way to delete this from the Webex portal, so I can show you how to do that. I'm going to make a little note here. Okay, so when you set up your office hours, something that's really neat with this function is if you're using Webex in several different courses in Pilot and you have your office hours set, that will carry over into your other courses, which is something that Chris actually taught me. I think that's very cool. So if you have the same office hours across the board, you can put them all into one, and it's going to show up that way for your other courses as well. So when it comes to meeting duration, what you can do is set this up to have, okay, how long do you want those office hour appointments to be? Because the student is going to come in here and click on the time blocks that you set as being available. So how long do you want your meetings to be? If you only want them to be 30 minutes, you can keep them as 30 minutes. And then this appointment buffer is how much time in between meetings. So in case one goes over, you're not having to roll right into another one. So you can say, I want like a 15-minute buffer in between meetings. And then what you're going to do is you're going to come in here and select the time blocks that are your office hours. So the course meetings, if I scheduled them as Tuesday, Thursday, and I want to say I'm going to have office hours on Wednesdays from 1 to 4. Let's do that. You can come in here and block off those times. One thing that's super important to remember is after you block the times, you've got to hit this blue save button. Because I have had a lot of people be like, I set my office hours, but the students can't see them. I'm like, oh, you didn't save it. You got to save those. And so once they are saved, the students will see on their end, they'll see that these are the times blocked off, and the way that they'll schedule it with you is they'll click on one and it will generate a meeting link for the two of you. So that also helps because when it generates that meeting link for the two of you, it reduces that risk of someone popping in. Like I know a lot of people will use an open office hours format where they might just have a WebEx room or a Collaborate room specifically dedicated to office hours, but then you have that issue of, is a student going to come in at the same time that I'm already speaking with a student? So that's a good way to alleviate that problem.
And just to be clear, it's a one-on-one meeting only. There's no way you can have office hours where multiple people come in. It's like by appointment if you want to do that option, correct?
This way it is. If you wanted to have a couple of people in an office hour, another way around that, you could always send an individual link from the Webex portal, which is that write.webex.com. You could schedule a meeting in there for your students outside of the pilot integration, or you could have a student sign up for one of your office hour blocks and then share that link with a fellow classmate. And that way they could both access it.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Chris?
You can also use your private room. So everybody at write.webex.com has a private room. Once you enter that room, you can lock the room. People can still come in, but they would be sitting in the participants page outside of the room. So you could bring in as many people as you want by right-clicking on the name and having them enter the space, enter your room. So you can have students come to your personal room, lock it, and then bring in whoever you want, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've actually never heard of them doing that way, so that's pretty cool. Before we switch over to actual functions within a WebEx meeting, I did want to point out that there is this little door icon. If you ever have an error message populate that is saying you need to reauthorize your account, the way that you do that is to click this log out of WebEx meetings, and it'll just prompt you to log right back in, and it fixes the problem. So that's something we see come up, not all the time, but usually at the beginning of semesters where people are needing to reauthorize. It's just logging out and logging back in. And this icon is how you do that. Awesome. So, can everyone see my WebEx meeting screen? Basically looking at ourselves. All right. I wanted to go through some of the most common questions we get with WebEx and what some of the different functions are within WebEx. And so starting with the basics, which I'm sure all of you have got a really good handle on now, being in a couple of these workshops with me. But down in the bottom of the screen, we've got our mute button, which is how your students are going to mute and unmute themselves, and our video. So you can either share videos or stop videos, depending on your setup for your class. I've seen it both ways, where sometimes faculty expect their students to keep their cameras on. It's kind of a good way to keep students accountable. It builds a little better connection because you can see each other's faces. That's totally up to you if you want to keep video on or off, but I do suggest that when you start your classes in the fall, set those expectations with the students from the get-go, because that's something we see a lot as during the semester. I feel like I'm talking to an empty screen. Yeah, well, if you set the expectations ahead of time and have them turn on their videos, it's really helpful. John said that Cheryl has a static image. Where are the settings to do this in the browser-based interface? That is on your WebEx portal. So there's a profile on there that you can go in and add a photo. And so before we jump out of here, I can go over into the WebEx portal and kind of show you guys where things are located in there as well. It is important to note, though, when you use the pilot integration, and if you were to schedule any sort of meetings in your WebEx portal on write.webex.com, those will not populate in your pilot integration. So for your class, any meetings that you want for your class need to be scheduled in the pilot integration. Cheryl, did you have a question? I saw your hand pop up. When you click share screen, you have a couple different options here. So if you remember when you all came in, I had a PDF that was showing for when you came into the meeting, and those were kind of my little introduction slides to go over session expectations, to just have something that is on the screen when you came in. The way that I did that was by sharing a file. So you have Windows, you have Files, you have Whiteboard. When it comes to the window, you can either share your screen. There is an option for an iPhone or an iPad screen. That this is relatively new, actually. That was not an option last year as far as I know, or if it was in a different spot. But you'll look, these are all of the different applications that I have up right now. So when I was sharing my pilot page with you, what I did is I hit share screen and then I hit Google Chrome. And you saw how it pulled it up for you guys, and you could see what I was doing on my screen as I was doing it. So typically what I suggest is if you're going to share a PowerPoint, or if you're going to share maybe a YouTube video, have those pulled up before you start class so that they're readily available for you to share and just click on it really quick. If you do share videos, I wanted to show you this up here. You'll see right now I have it actually set for motion and video. Typically it is set for optimized text and images. I see it says automatically optimized. That's also new, which is kind of neat. But if you're going to share a video with the class, you want to optimize for motion and video, and you'll see this little icon right here If it has the X, that means that your computer audio is not sharing. If you're sharing a video, you do want them to be able to hear your computer audio. Otherwise, they'll see the video moving, but they probably won't be able to hear it. Okay. Once you select whatever you're going to share, there's this blue button right down here. Like I said, you can also share files. What I did earlier was share a PDF. Oh, I hear a hand, but I don't see a hand. Who had a question for me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had other application in there in the share folder there when you showed. So if I in my application, let's say I want to run MATLAB there, can I do that?
I believe so. I don't have any experience with MATLAB. Chris, do you have an answer for that?
You should be able to share any app that you have open. So if you have it open, where Courtney has all of those displayed, those are all apps that she is running that are open.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you have the application open, you should have, well, and you also have the ability where it says other apps. And you should be able to pick and choose what apps you want. But if the app is open, it should be listed there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
So is it
And that's
better to
why-
share a win? Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. I was just going to say that's why I usually recommend that you have everything up for your class before you start class, because then it's way easier to be able to just click on it really quick and share it. You don't have to go through the step of finding the app location. It's already up and running. So what were you going to ask?
Yeah, so you should have, see in Collab Ultra, that's where I'm coming from, like for slides, we'd have to upload PowerPoint, or upload PDFs, right? We'd save them as, and then so we'd just share that, that file. But here you're saying, rather than share the file, you should just have them open and then share that window. That's the
Yeah, and-
best, what's going to give you the best presentation.
I err on the side of sharing the application. So if you're talking about a PowerPoint,
Right.
that's what I would do. If you have, the reason I shared a file earlier was because I have a PDF saved instead of pulling up the full Adobe Acrobat where everyone could see all of the different settings in Adobe. This only shows the text. And so if you're sharing a Word document or maybe your syllabus, you could always share your screen or share Microsoft Word, and then they'll just see all the different settings where, oh, if I want to change this and bold it, they'll be able to watch you doing that. Whereas if you just have the document, that's all you want them to see, file is better. Does that make sense?
So for PowerPoint, you're saying have it open and then just share that window?
Yeah, I think that sharing the application
better.
is just as good.
Because
Yeah.
I don't care about showing them how to use PowerPoint, right? I just want to display
Right.
it and maximize it so it fills the screen. So the window would be the better way to go then.
Yeah. Yep, I would say so.
Yes, you think? Okay, thanks.
And then John, your question from the chat, if you wanted to just share your entire desktop screen, that's what this share screen is. If you share the screen, that means that the students are going to be able to see you navigate through anything that you have open. So if I share just Google Chrome like earlier, if I were to pull up Teams while I'm sharing Google Chrome, you guys would not see Microsoft Teams. But if you share your screen, they'll see everything you're doing. Okay. Last one is the whiteboard. So if you want to share the whiteboard and use that, here is where that's housed. The whiteboard function, actually, I wonder if it'll let me share while okay. Yes, it will. Perfect. So if you want to share a whiteboard, this is really neat if you want to put text in. You'll see all of the annotation tools show up over here. And the students will see not the exact same thing. What they can do is request to annotate. So if you have students, it's a little different from Collaborate Ultra. And Chris, this is also something that if I'm saying anything wrong, please correct me. But in Collaborate Ultra, you can have it set ahead of time on whether or not a student can automatically go in and draw on the whiteboard when you share it. With Webex, in my experience, what I've seen is that you have to request from whoever the host is, whoever is writing on the whiteboard, the student would have to request that access to be able to write on it. So if you look at all the different annotations over here, there's a pointer, allow to annotate, that's where you give the student the ability, or if they request, you would give it to them that way. Chris is requesting to annotate. Thank you for helping. I approve. So now both of
How'd
us
you do
can
that?
write on here.
If you right click your mouse on the screen on the whiteboard, a box comes up and asks if you can ask for permission.
Yep, perfect. So now Karen is on there as well. Allow to annotate. I have this button over here so I can give it. You're not on my list. Where did John go? So now everyone has the ability to write on this as well. So this can be really good for some interactive activities with the students if you wanted to do that. I'm loving all of this beautiful art that I'm seeing over here. There's also a text tool. If you click on the T and click anywhere on the screen, you can type, which is also pretty neat. Oh, pretty flower. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing the whiteboard. Whiteboard. No? Do you want to save the current document? No, I'm okay. I don't think so. Don't get me wrong, loved the flower, but I'm probably not going to save the document. What else did I want to show you? So that's all the sharing. I did see a chat pop up. Let me double check what Elizabeth said. Keeping things simple. If I have a PowerPoint and want to share that with the students, what is the best way to do that? So best way to do that, and if we already talked about this, feel free to stop me. Best way to do that is have your PowerPoint up and ready before you start the Webex. And then when you hit share screen or share down here, you'll have your PowerPoint will be in a little box over here. It'll say Microsoft PowerPoint. I do not have a PowerPoint open, but once you click on that, say, okay, I'm going to share Google Chrome, perfect. And then you hit this blue share button. So that's what you're going to do with your PowerPoints. Okay. Do you feel better about that, Elizabeth? Yeah? Okay. All right. We've got share, we've got the recording button. Of course, if you do want to record your sessions, when you get into your Webex, you'll have the option down in the bottom to record. When I started the meeting, I just hit record, and then a little box will pop up. Like if I were to hit this now, I can stop, I can pause, but that's also when you first get in, that's where it'll say start recording. Pause is really helpful. I had an instructor that we had 3-hour long classes, and so she would pause during our breaks and then resume recording so that she wasn't recording any personal conversations during the breaks, and that just helps to kind of keep that privacy for the other students.
Courtney, I'm not seeing the record. Is it because we're not presenting?
Exactly. Yep. The host is the
Yes,
only
the
person
board
that
knows.
has the ability to record.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
All right. I see a hand raised for Kuldeep. I see a hand raised for Cheryl. Did you both have questions, or is the hand up from the last time?
I do have a question. This is Cheryl.
Okay.
I believe there's a way to automatically record every session. Could you go over that?
I think the automatic recording is from the write.webex.com. Chris, is that true? Is that in the portal where they would set that up?
Yes. So
Okay.
if you go to the write.webex.com, you can go into your preferences to automatically record.
Yeah, let me pull up write.webex.com so you guys can see.
And is that also where you can set settings so that students can share and be the presenters?
No, so one way that you can manage the roles for the participants, let me pull up my meeting window again. All right. So you can see when I look at the participants down in this bottom corner, this is the way I like to do it. Do you see right next to my name, there's this little teeny box with the arrow pointing out? If you click on that and hold it down and drag it, you can give it to someone else. So if you have a student who's doing a presentation, you can give them that presenter role by dragging that little icon over. I'm going to make Chris Flanagan a presenter. And it shows you passing presenter privileges over. Okay. All right. I think that another way to do that too, up here where it says participant, you can assign privileges, you can change roles. So if I click on someone's name in the participant panel, I can make them a host or a presenter or a co-host as well. That's a really good question.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. So when you log in to write.webex.com, first of all, I was already logged in, so it immediately took me to my page. What you're going to see is a page where there's going to be a login button in the upper right corner. So you click login, you use your Write State credentials to log in here, and this is where you can view all of your meetings. This is one of the spots you can view your recordings. I did want to show you where the recordings are supposed to populate in Pilot. I say supposed to because we have problems with that. But meetings, if you want to change and make it so that they all record automatically, you can go, is it preferences over here, Chris, so that it's for all meetings that they record automatically?
Under that recording, you can change your layout for all of your recordings, but
Okay.
to make it to where it auto records, you have to do it for each one.
Each individual
I believe
series?
so.
Okay.
And I don't know if that was an option when you set up the course within Pilot, if that was an option or not.
I don't think it was an option to auto record. You can't do that. That doesn't go into the details as much on Pilot, keeps it very simple. So
Okay.
if you were to want to auto record and go in through the WebEx portal over here, if you noticed when I was in the meetings, and I can go back to my meeting list, I'm going to click on the one that we're in right now, just so I'm not messing with any of the other ones. What you're going to do, oh shoot, it's not going to let me edit because we're in it. Let me schedule a test meeting. And also, this is not how you schedule your meetings for your classes. I do want to make that very clear. If you're using the write.webex.com, it's to schedule meetings outside of Pilot. When it comes to classes, while you could do it this way, we have that Pilot integration specifically for scheduling your course sessions and having them all in one place for the students. It makes it a little easier on them. Okay. So when you want to auto record your sessions, there will be a way to go into the meeting and there's a little edit icon. For this one, I'm going to show the advanced options. Agenda, scheduling options, and automatically start recording when the meeting starts. Okay. So this is where you would check that box. Okay. Cheryl, I'm going to try and find an example of how to edit an already existing meeting so that you can see that's where it would be. It would still be under advanced options and you would select that. The only difference is that with most meetings, once you schedule them, there's a little edit icon. So let me, whose hand just went up? I heard the beep, but I can't see the hands right now.
John.
Hi, John, what's up?
So we can take this offline. This might be more advanced, but after you do a recording, does WebEx have built inside it any kind of editing tools? Like if you click on recording, is there an editor? So for example, let's suppose you forgot to turn off recording and instead of an hour lecture, it's now an hour and a half and you'd like to go and delete that, last half hour. Now I know how to do that offline and upload it to Pilot, but if there's tools inside here, that would be really cool to know about. And again, we could do that offline if you wanted.
Sure, yeah, that's something I can send you some instructions. I want to make sure that the editor in Webex is still available because I haven't messed with it in quite a while. There used to be the ability from within this write.webex.com to go over here to your recordings and you can trim it. You can't mess with anything in the middle of the recording, but you can either trim the beginning or the end. So it's very simple, but can be effective for the situation you're talking about.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And then Cheryl, when you talked about editing a meeting that already exists, this is that edit icon I was talking about. So once you've scheduled them in Pilot and you want to change it so that it automatically starts recording, you can edit them in here and change it so it automatically records.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got about 5 minutes left. That went pretty fast. So the last thing that I want to show you is the two different spots where you will find your recordings. This comes up very frequently. So one spot from the write.webex.com portal is in this recordings tab over here. So here you'll see that all of them are listed and you're able to share them with students from here. But when you schedule a course in Pilot, there's a recording section in the Pilot integration, and that is where your recordings should populate automatically. And the reason I say should is because this is one function that's been a little bit inconsistent over the past year. So I always like to tell people that don't worry if your recording doesn't show up in Pilot. First of all, give it at least 24 hours. And second of all, it will be here if it's not in Pilot. So you're still going to have a way to get that out to students in a little bit of a roundabout way. There is a workaround. Let me go back over to the Pilot integration and I can show you where that was in the virtual meetings tab. But do I have any other questions that you are wanting to address before we jump off here? It is almost 11. Was that Cheryl?
Yes, I have a question. When I was teaching fully online this summer, there were just a few instances where I could not hear the students. And I'm wondering if there's some certain things that we should check. So for example, I know one of the times was I had muted on my computer. And so I could not hear the students, but there was another time where I couldn't hear them. They were talking amongst themselves. They could hear each other, but I could not hear them. I just wonder if anybody else has run into that and what to do about it.
I have not. Chris, do you have any insights on that one? It sounds like it might be a tech side issue.
Yeah, next to where your mute is on your screen, there's a drop-down menu for audio options, and that allows you to check to make sure what you have selected for your input and your output. So you can always check to make sure that you're using your computer or your speakers as the output. And you can also, I believe you can switch during the call as well if you have the wrong things set. You can also test. So if you go to settings next to your mute button, you can test your microphone and you'll see a level indicator, but you can also test your speakers.
Okay. Just real quick before we jump off here, I did want to show you, this is where the recordings should populate in Pilot. This is in the virtual meetings tab that we talked about with the upcoming past meetings and recordings. So past meetings is where you could get that attendance. Recordings is where this should be available for both you and the student. The student will be able to see that. Okay. All right. I know that was a lot of information. Do I have any other questions right now about WebEx? Sounds good. So one thing I do want to mention before we leave is how to contact me. So I'm kind of the first level WebEx help. So if you guys do think of any questions, bye John, thanks for coming. If you have any questions, when you send out material, will it be printable instructions? I do have some documentation that I can send out. Yes. Yep. Contacting. So you can either go through the CATS help desk. You can give them a phone call, and I can put that in the chat for anyone that doesn't have it. Give them a phone call, and a lot of our techs at the help desk can help with some basic WebEx questions, and if not, they can route it over to me. If there's any time where you have a question and I do not know the answer, I go to Chris. Chris Flanagan is our system administrator for WebEx. He's awesome. We have a couple of also people from Cisco that we can go to for help. So come to me first or the CATS help desk. And if I cannot help you, I will find the answer. So another way to contact me is just by direct email. So there's the phone number. Boom. Here's my email because my name is spelled a little weird. All right, and I will also get that help documentation and the recording out, I'm hoping by today. If not today, I'll try to get it out tomorrow. All right, everyone, I'm going to go ahead and end this meeting. Feel free to contact me if you think of anything. I'm always happy to help you get this set up so that we can have our fall courses run as smoothly as possible. So have a great day.